National. So the British public is under threat of Islamist attacks. That's the warning from the country's security chief. Making his first speech since taking over, the new head of MI5 shared his fears and confessed the UK intelligence services were not perfect. Let's go live to London. RT's Tessa is there. Hi Tessa. Rather worrying words from the new MI5 chief, aren't they?
Indeed it is, and the gist of that warning really is that he says that there are thousands of Islamist extremists in the UK who see the British public as a legitimate target for attacks. He was specifically referring to Al-Qaeda and its affiliate groups in Pakistan and Yemen as the most direct and immediate threats to the UK, according to him. And also he was referring to the fact that some of these groups had successfully smuggled explosives onto planes and got past security in the last 4 years, and also raising the conflict in Syria. He echoed the same concerns that several other European governments have been expressing with regard to individuals who had gone over to Syria to fight and then have been coming back to the country. Now, he raised the point that there are some Sunni extremist groups in Syria who are aspiring to attack Western countries. Now, he also said in the first few months of this year alone, there's already been 4 major trials in relation to some terror plots. Now, having given these warnings, he also defended the need for intelligence services to be employing the kind of vast surveillance that they've already had. Of course, this is one side of the story, the other side being the recent public backlash we've seen on the activities of the intelligence services. Now, let's get more insight on this whole story, the warnings from Jim Brand from the Stop the War Coalition. Thanks very much for joining us. What do you make of the statements of the MI5 chief? I mean, why issue the warnings now? If we look at the Terrorism Act, for example, that's already in place, this has never really lost priority with this government.
No, at its most general, I think you have to say that this is all of a piece with the war on terror. That's to say, there are certain things that he said that have some logic, and there are certain things that he said that on the face of it have no logic. And they're all bundled together under this rubric of the war on terror.
Which ones have logic?
Well, for example, he said that people who go to... I mean, clearly there are people from this country who go to Syria. And there's some possibility that they may cause some problem coming back here, because they will aim to come back here. That has a certain logic. On the other hand, this line, it's quite contradictory, his speech. He said that there are thousands of people in this country who would plot or are plotting or in some stage of plotting. And on the other hand, he said, no, he said, since the year 2000, we have dealt with 2 serious plots per year. So presumably these thousands of people who are plotting are completely unsuccessful.
Right, so it is not coherent to you. But he mentioned those people fighting in Syria coming back. But what about the British extremists who maybe have been involved in attacks elsewhere, as we've heard about the speculations and involvement in the recent Kenyan mall attack? What do you make of that kind of threat?
I think this White Widow story, I find it extremely dubious. I think it serves more to, because they have to bolster this idea of the war on terror as a coherent thing, where the threat is coming from out there. The threat is nothing to do with what the British government does. It comes from out there and it remains. They have to present the thing that way. And in that context, they have, for example, this White Widow supposedly in Kenya.
To justify what?
At its broadest, intervention everywhere. That's the point. That's the starting point of the war on terror, that we are justified in what we do because of the threat that already exists, rather than that we are creating the threat. That's
all right,
point.
very, very briefly. In the context of British society, we've seen that this kind of fear of terrorism has impacted British Muslims. What impact would this have now? Just very briefly.
Oh, clearly there is. I mean, you speak to young Muslims and they are extremely disturbed by this constant presentation of them basically being a threat. And if you say there are thousands, then people should really look around, shouldn't they? And they should look at people, look at mosques and so on and be worried. That's the gist of it. That's the import of it. And they will be, young, especially young Muslims will be worried, no doubt.
Right. Thank you very much for your thoughts there. So there you have it. Mr. Parker, the MI5 chief, had said that he did not believe the terrorist threat is any worse now than it was before, but he described it as more diffuse, more complicated, and more unpredictable.
Tessa, Jim Brand in our London newsroom. Thank you.